Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm back. You guys, I'm back for the second season of the fifth iteration. I'm so excited to bring you this episode. Keep in mind, the first 10 minutes, I didn't quite have my mic set up correctly. So I get much clearer. So if you could just bear to get past the first 10 minutes, it's still audible, but it does get much clearer after 10 minutes. Remember to comment and join the conversation that's happening offline to continue the great growth. I'll see you on the other side.
Welcome back. I'm back, and this go round, we've got a lot to talk about. I just finished up my a very important conversation, one of which I'm going to be having, and I hope to have you involved in this conversation as well. But I posed the question: why are Black people not into politics for the most part? We have some outliers. I've been blessed enough to always have one friend somewhere in my sphere that keeps their ear to the political world and can inform me. But, you know, as I approach what is considered middle age, and I'm really toiling with that. And in particular, I came across some information that was just astonishing to me, and I really wondered like why I didn't know this already, and feeling like I should have known this. So one of those big pieces of information was the pandemic treaty. So apparently, the World Health Organization (WHO) has been working on a treaty since COVID, and they have a deadline of May 2024 that they wanted to have this treaty in place, which is basically an agreement, a global agreement that would basically determine different protocols and things that would happen in the case of another pandemic. So I originally heard about this from a podcast, which would be considered Republican, by the way, and we'll talk about that later. But I heard about it from watching a podcast, and so um, if the United States agrees to be a part of this treaty, apparently, who would have certain, authorities that they would have, like to determine things about lockdowns, to determine things about agriculture. Like they could come in and, reorganize people's land and property. And so this had me look into it a little bit more. Now there's a lot of controversy around this topic, and some say that it would not, take away the United States sovereignty. So some argue that, but so far it has passed the House of Representatives, with the exception of Louisiana, who decided that they were not going to be a part of this. But it has passed in the House, and now it's going over to the Senate to be passed. And I checked with my inner circle, and they say that it's highly likely that it will not pass the Senate, which I'm hoping that it doesn't, because I just don't want another thing that I would have to worry about, in case there was a pandemic, that it's not up to the state I live in, and then if it's not up to the country I live in, but it's up to, a global organization, that is made up of many countries to determine what might happen to me and my property if I had some, or determine what type of lockdown I would be under. To me, that's just too many different factors, too many different people involved that would affect, me in my little town, my little suburban town, in my state, in my country. And so that just really put me up in arms. And another thing that I came into the awareness of, you may have already known this, but this was new to me, and that is that members of government can have dual citizenship, excuse me, which means that right now we could very well have members of the House of Representatives or even senators serving our country who also are citizens of other countries. So, for example, right now, imagine there's a war going on in Israel and um, also Ukraine and Russia. Now, Israel specifically does offer dual citizenship to Jewish people. So, very well, there could be Jewish people. There are Jewish people in our country that also have dual citizenship in Israel as well as the United States. So, to me, that just rings of red flags, conflicts of interest and things like that. So, like I said, that might be something that's common knowledge for you. But for me, or some of my listeners, but for me, both of these things were brand new information. And so this just made me think, yeah, I really need to get my head in the game. I really need to pay a lot more attention. I have children. You have children. We're in different states, and God forbid something happen. But I need to be, I need to at least take the actions necessary to prepare myself and my family as best as I could. I don't need to be out here completely unprepared, like, not even knowing what the weather might be tomorrow, and I don't have, you know, not one can of beans or not one jug of water in case the water, went out. Like, I'm just out here willy nilly and lottie dottie, skipping through the garden. And I really wish and hope, like, I want to live in that world. And I guess I kind of do because I'm completely out of the loop. But, you know, a few years ago when this pandemic, when it hit, and I found myself pulling out winter gloves in the middle of April because I don't have any gloves when I went to the grocery store because I don't know what's being passed around and what's going on. So I just feel like we learn from Sankofa. We learn from the past. Hindsight is 2020, all that good stuff. So moving forward, we should definitely be wise about what could possibly be ahead of us and to be prepared. You know, there's a saying that I'm thinking of, but I don't know if the words are going to come. That it is better to be prepared than not, right? It's better to have and not need versus not have and need, that sort of thing. So those were just two of, you know, who knows how many things going on in our world right now that I just became aware of just by paying a little bit more attention to what's going on around me, um, that I thought that stopped me dead in my tracks and just had me rethink my whole life. While I'm laying in bed and I'm scrolling the internet and I'm being tempted to tap on the P Diddy situation, or now all the different headlines. They're pulling all the different people in. Not that that's not news and we need to be aware of, but or passing by Tasha K's gossip, channel and all the other gossip, like a lot of our podcasts, a lot of our media outlets. And maybe I need to probably do a cleanup on my feed, because maybe it's just my feed. But you guys let me know. Is it yours too? But my feed seems to be inundated with gossip, gossip here and gossip there, and just people discussing other people versus us discussing ideas and concepts and, you know, things that will enable us to expand and to grow, especially in the areas that we would like to. And so this happened, and I was already being inspired. And you guys know I stay in the lab with my pen and my pad. And I probably do a lot more analysis. um, I do a lot of analysis. So anyways, with this new season, guys, I'm going to be sharing my analyses, all the things that I've been tooling and thinking and learning and growing from um, in the past few years. If you have not checked out first season or the first 3 episodes of the fifth iteration, please do go back and get caught up on who I am and how I think here. Um, and it will definitely prep you for all that is to come in this season.
Alrighty, so I made a few adjustments, so I should sound clearer now. All right. Should Black people be a little bit more involved? Should we be in the loop of politics? And basically, I've come to the answer, and the answer is yes. Even if it's just our awareness of what's happening in the spheres that affect us, yes, we need to stay in the loop. We need to get in the game. We need to get in the conversation, and we need to start showing up, because we're literally sheep. We're sheep. We're cows being steered and herded in different directions, when you and I both know that we're so much more than that. Okay? But we have to get into the driver's seat. But first of all, we need to even recognize that there's a vehicle. Okay? Some of us just don't even know that there's a vehicle and that somebody else is driving it for you. So there are levels to the awareness that needs to be had. But we definitely need to wake up, and we need to get in the loop. We need to get in the conversation, because where our, we have influence. Where we have influence, we have control. Okay? And we have influence where we have our concern. So I think for the most part, our concerns have not been or involved politics, and that's understandable. And alongside that, look at our history. We've been traumatized out of this. We've been killed for trying to enter this sphere of influence, assassinated. So let me not overlook and overstep that. That's a big part of this puzzle. And I think that is actually bigger than what I'm fully taking into account here. But I was talking with a very wise elder, and she was helping me see how much of that is a part of this. And so, you guys, I just invite you to explore this with me. because I'm going to be learning as I go as well. And so, you know, we've we've been, I don't know, have we been bullied? I know that that doesn't that's a, we've been more than bullied. Definitely. We've been more than bullied out of this sphere of influence. Um so I've come to the conclusion for now that yes, we do need to expand our awareness. We need to know what's going on because decisions are made for us that affect us in this field. So I came across another piece of information that was astounding to me. And if you're in the loop of some of the podcasts, some of the big podcasts, you probably came across this as well. But so there was this former CIA spy, right, who was on so many people's podcasts over the last year or so. This guy, his name was Andrew Bustamante. Excuse me if I believe that was his name was Andrew, but he was on a lot of podcasts, and so I listened to a few of them. Apparently he claims to be a former CIA agent and talked about many things on these platforms, but the one thing I want to bring to you all today was when I heard him speak about, how the CIA, or CIA as he refers to it, is run. And so basically what he was saying was is that CIA, along with other government institutions, basically are running on outdated systems. Basically, there's a lot of old people that work in these systems, and younger people, smarter people, are not choosing to go into government. And so there's a personnel crisis. There's a personnel crisis, sort of like now. Like when you go into Walmart, like I don't go in there often, but I promise you, every time I go in there, you guys know they have a million cash registers, but how many are actually open? Right? They're always going to have the self checkout open. Or, now I'm going into restaurants. I'm noticing now that a lot of places are understaffed, right? People don't want to work, right? And I don't blame them because they're not paying enough. So that's a whole nother conversation. But imagine this happening in government. Okay, imagine this happening in government. These people are supposed to be running the country. What are we doing? We're somewhere at home watching Netflix, right? Scrolling on our phones or shopping, chilling, right? Meanwhile, nobody's working at CIA or nobody's working at these government offices. Who is running the country? No wonder it's so easy for, you know, all this stuff to be happening and going on. It's because nobody is there really running the place, at least not in a very good way, right? Obviously. So, back to what's going on with the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty. And I mentioned to you how Louisiana was the only state so far that said, no, thank you, we don't want to participate. I'm thinking, like, where are the other 49 states? Like, maybe their head is literally just not in the game. Like, what are they thinking? And what about the local representatives? I'm sure they're busy with local stuff, maybe, or maybe not. But maybe they don't even know, like we don't know. How many other laws are like easily being passed and under right under our noses that we're not aware of? And one day it could all just come back and bite us, right? If there was one thing that I did not like usually I can just deal with everything, right? We can live in our own little quiet living rooms with Netflix. We don't bother people. We go to our jobs and we just want to feed our families and just be at peace, right? We don't want no smoke. That's for the most part how we are. But when the pandemic happened, that was tough. We couldn't move around as we wanted to. We couldn't go and come and go as we please. We couldn't see our loved ones, you know? I didn't I'm trying to think. My children happened to be out of the country. Like they left that summer and I didn't see them for 6 months because they were in Canada and they didn't open the country back up or some stuff. So for 6 months, I went through the pandemic alone. I don't, which yeah, I mean it's scary, but I love to travel. I could not travel, so that was a part of the reason why when some of the lockdowns and things got to be lifted, I was out of here. I sold my car. I sold most of my furniture. I put everything else in storage and I moved. Well, I went to Costa Rica first and then I ended up in Mexico for 6 months. But literally during the pandemic, I was plotting my way out of this country. Now I have since decided that, I decided to come back and I've been back here since. But that was the headspace I was in at the time because it's tough when your certain freedoms are taken away from you. So, can you imagine being a landowner, and being someone who has prepped for things like pandemics to happen? And you've got your land and you've got your sustainable, lifestyle, and you've got your animals, your agriculture, and you're living off of your land, and something happens, and because of this pandemic treaty, if who decides that, hey, all the cows now are susceptible to this, whatever this new strand of whatever this is, and then they come and decide that they're going to take your cows or your chickens or whatever else, or they tell you you can't grow these certain types of crops anymore. Like, so we have to pay attention. This is the way I see it. I would love to hear your thoughts about it, but like I said, this is just one example, one little thing, and it's not little, but it's just one example of, laws are being passed all the time. So, I'm challenging the mindset. We definitely have to grow and expand, you know. So I was looking at spheres of influence. And to me, it's comparable to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically, these are just frameworks for how one can view the world, so to speak. So with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a way that he has sort of categorized human needs, and at the very bottom of the pyramid are our basic human needs, like for food and shelter. And then as you move up, it's in the shape of a pyramid. As you move up, the next level, the next tier of needs are for love and belonging. So it's more so familial needs. And then it's more social, the next rung. And so it kind of moves up till you get to the very top of the pyramid. And at the very top of the pyramid is self-actualization. And basically, this is where your own person. You are like you know, you have fulfilled all of your needs and you are the full expression of what it is that you fully see yourself as, you know? And so that's something that I've taught from and I've referred to a lot because I sort of feel like this framework of the hierarchy of needs is in a way, comparable, or you can think of it like a soul's journey, you know, like we're on this journey of wholeness or claiming our wholeness, the wholeness that our spirit is. So our spirit is whole, our spirit is with source, with God, the universe, and our soul is more so what's down here with us. It's the collective of where we've been in the past. And so the soul is on the journey towards the spirit. And so I kind of see those two things as being parallel, the hierarchy of needs, as you fulfill and grow, fulfill those different needs, from basic physical needs to your emotional needs to your mental needs, and then your sort of unseen spiritual. You fill in all of that and you become this whole being that's self-actualized, self-expressed, full self, best self-expression. So this now I want you to think about that and then consider something called a sphere of influence. And so to me, when as I was asking and reflecting on, whether or not, where does politics, even fall in all of this? Like, can we just live? Do we even have to pay attention to what's happening in the global world? Can we just live in our own little section of life? And yeah, we can. But what about the things the confinements that we live in, right? As we live in our own little worlds, our own little sections of the world, there are certain restrictions and things that we're confined to, right? There's only, there's a certain amount of money you have, that you make, that you receive. In order to get from point A to point B, you've got to go through the societal, legal, and political spheres. You've got to abide by the societal, political, and legal restrictions and regulations and processes that have been decided. And, God forbid there's another pandemic, then that puts restrictions and confinements on your world. So to me, that answers the question of whether or not this should we or should we not be aware. Like, we can't unplug from this. It is a part of things. And so the spheres of influence sort of move up in a way that Maslow's hierarchy of needs frames our needs and our growth as we acquire the different levels. Same goes with the spheres of influence. The very lowest sphere of influence is individual. Okay, so imagine these as circles now, right? So the innermost circle of all the spheres of influence would be the individual sphere, where, you have basically the influence over yourself, what you believe in, your attitude, how you choose to behave, right? And outside of your individual influence lies your interpersonal and social influences. So your family, your friendships, and social interactions and things like that, right? So that circle, right? You're expanding. So individual is self. Outside of the individual is interpersonal and social. You, as you interact with others and you show up in the space of being social with family and friends, you have a influence in that space. Outside of interpersonal, bigger than that is the community where where you go to school, where you worship, community organizations, things like that. And then beyond community is our society, our societal influences, the culture, public policy, certain laws, regulations, economics, science, technology that we use, our phones that we use. We didn't control, we didn't create the satellite, we didn't create nothing that's in the phone, but somehow we use the phone, right? But the people that made the phone work. Okay, now what's their influence like, right? And then outside and bigger than society influence is the global sphere of influence. And so, as you think about these different levels, individual, interpersonal, community, society, and global, think about different people in our world, I guess, or in your world that have influence on these different levels. Okay, so somebody like a Elon Musk, right, is someone who has a global influence. President, you know, I mean, this man is on a global level. I don't know, like, so I'm in my head. I'm just considering other people that might also be and have a global influence. But definitely, the presidents and our leaders have societal influences. So, my point in sharing the different spheres of influence, I want to connect that back to what I was sharing earlier about where we have control. We only have control in the spaces that we can influence. Okay? Control is within influence. So we don't have any control or power when it comes to politics because we don't have any, for the most part, influence. And so, and I know that this conversation today is heavy on the political and the government end of things, but this same concept can be applied to other industries and other fields. For example, technology. Technology, science, math, any of the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. How are we showing up there for the most part? Um, I'm a math teacher. And for the most part, majority of our kids, they don't like math. Well, and nowadays it's really most kids, American kids, literally. And it's not just the kids. Most of my coworkers don't like math. Only the math teachers seem to like math. Everybody talks bad about math, but look at the effect that that's having on our society. Okay, how are we growing? We're not the key players in these areas. We don't know how half the stuff that we use works. Somebody else did that for us. We can change that. And it's certainly not that we don't have the capability. It's just that we have to be groomed and educated and be educated and steered in that direction. But because we have not been, we're being steered in other directions away from these things. We're not showing up. We have no influence in these areas. And so what I'm proposing today is, at the minimum, that you pose a question to yourself, a moment of reflection. if you're like me and you have been one that's been out of the loop, do you think that that action still best serves you? And what about your children and your children's children? What effects of your actions or non actions, what effects will that have in the future? What will the impact be of your action or non action? What legacy will you leave for your children and children's children and so on? Will you leave them a legacy of growth and expansion in all areas? Just what will that look like? Are there ways that you could prepare them for the future? I want to go back for a moment and go back to the CIA guy. I did listen to, like I said, several podcasts that he appeared on, but I believe he was so. This is actually another guy I think I was listening to. I've listened to so many different things, but let's talk about the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. These are the fields and the industries that grow our world. Okay, they keep us expanding. Things like this are connected to our defense system, obviously, right? Who's designing all of that? Who are the minds behind all of that? Usually, they are not, let's say, indigenous American. Usually, they are Asian American. Asian Americans are leading in these fields. When you look at, Silicon Valley, basically, which is the area in California where a lot of the tech companies are, their home base is in California in Silicon Valley. All of the up and coming tech companies and stuff like that are there. Who's working for those companies? Okay. Do we have influence there? Are any of our bright minds over there? Yeah, some of us are. We got a few specks of pepper over there. Excuse me, I'm sorry, no offense. I'm not trying to be offensive in that. But we got to think. We just got to get in the driver's seat in so many ways, if you're catching my drift here. Otherwise, we are literally being taken for a ride. We're being taken for the ride. Or better yet, we're being rode. Not better yet, but we might be just being rode out here. We're either, they're driving us, literally sitting on top and using us. We're the consumers, where we have brilliant minds that are capable of being in the game, in the conversation, in the rooms, and who knows, with some of the most fantastic ideas that have not even been considered. I want you guys, when you get a chance, I want you to look up Terrence Howard's Oxford University and watch the video. Okay? You're going to hear something that is so unsuspecting coming from Terrence Howard. You guys remember a few years ago, there was a video circulating and he was being clowned because of some things that he was talking about on the red carpet. I remember, and I'm laughing because I remember watching the video and thinking, okay, Terrence, Terrence Howard is on one. You guys remember that? He was talking about the conjugations. Excuse me for laughing. But you guys, I remember how it sounded. He was talking about the conjugations, the flower of life, the platonic solids. Like, dude was on the next galaxy and beyond. But this, okay, if you watch this conversation that he had at Oxford University, Terrence Howard is actually a genius who just happens to be an actor. Okay. But the man has patents, but he's proposing a new idea. And this idea essentially relates to how we view numbers, which determines, of course, our mathematics, our measurements. In particular, like it's going to have the biggest effect on money. But the other biggest realm of impact is science. And so basically, he has an entire theory around, how we're viewing certain things and how we always have, how the mathematics basically was built and created and put in place, and how there may need to be a shift in how we view certain numbers and how we think of numbers, because according to his argument, the reason why we haven't achieved things like, I don't know if he was referring to, I think certain types of space travel, like, right? You know, yeah, well, basically, we're kind of like stuck here on Earth. Maybe they can get to the moon, but they can't really get farther than that, right? Plus, it's so far away. We would die trying to get there. So it's about physics and stuff like that. But there are these really, 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 deep scientific mathematical concepts that he's discussing. But he has some great ideas, but it changes everything about it, changes everything. Like these are the sorts of ideas that change the basics of how the foundation of everything. When you think about our number system, like what if, like, okay, so this is another individual, another brother I love to listen to by the name of Seven Bomar. But he introduced this is gonna blow your mind too. Basically, what if the way that we learn the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, what if we didn't learn them in the right order? What if it's actually, 1, 4, 2, 7, 8, 9 or something like that? Okay, because that's not the right order. I'll have to go pull out my notes to tell you guys what the actual order is, and I don't have my notes with me. But basically, ideas like that, right, is that numbers are actually more than what we've been taught that they are. That numbers actually represent energies, okay? And they govern certain things. The same thing with the word, which these two topics will have to be separate. Actually, I've got like 3 topics in this one episode that have to be their own episodes. But these are actual concepts and ideas that have been explored. And for the most part, I don't think any of maybe a few of my listeners are aware of, but for the most part, it's new information. But these are the spaces that our minds should have the time and the energy and the space to be able to exercise these types of thoughts, these types of ideas and concepts. These are essentially new realities, right? But instead, we might just be chilling on the couch, scrolling on YouTube, getting caught up in the P. Diddy drama or what Tasha K, and I'm talking about myself because I get caught up in this stuff too, or what's going on with the housewives, you know. But there are some interesting things that have been embedded into the very fabric of this world that makes it the way that it is, and that really, if we thought about it in a different way, could change everything. So I think I'm going to end this here because I'm at about 44 minutes, and I've said so much, and I know that I've got to branch off of this episode into some deeper things, but we will do it. I will do it, you guys. I'm looking forward to this season of the 5th iteration because I'm gonna be bringing y'all the stuff. I'm gonna be talking to you guys about the flower of life and the conjugations from Terrace Howard. I'm gonna be talking to you about the Ouroboros from Seven Bomar, and even the CIA guy, Andre Bustamante, or whatever his name is. You know what he has to say, and maybe even a little bit of Candace Owens. We'll see. But all of it is to exercise your mind, right? To grow your mind, to grow the neural pathways, activate more of the, what is it, the 2% or 3% of our brains that they say that we use. Okay, so anyhow, until next time, you guys, wholeness, grace, and love.